everyone to the Midlife Mom. I just made myself a cup of tea. Why don't you get yourself a tea or a coffee or maybe a cold drink and settle yourself down in a nice comfy chair for our chat today. I had to make some bread, my sourdough bread, and I thought we could just have a real heart-to-heart talk today about some things that are going on in my life at middle age. And I'm sure that all of you that are my age or even older or maybe a bit younger are already experiencing. So I'll start with just telling you a little bit about my sourdough recipe. You know, you see all these ladies online that are just these wonderful bakers, and they're making this homemade sourdough bread from scratch, and it just looks like a work of art. Well, I don't have time for that. And so I thought to myself, I want to make sourdough bread. I don't buy a lot of processed bread anymore, but I need to simplify it and be realistic. So what I've done was I took my bread machine recipe and I modified it so that I could just make a sourdough sandwich bread. And you know what? I've had good success with it. It's not, perfect. I still use all-purpose flour, which I'm sure I could step it up a notch and find something better to use. But for this recipe, it's simple, it's easy, it's using a lot of things I already have in my house. It's quick and it works. So it starts off with 1.5 cups of water, 2 tablespoons of powdered milk, 2 tablespoons of shortening, 1 tablespoon of sugar, and 1.5 teaspoons of salt, 4 cups of flour, and I substitute one of those cups for my sourdough starter, and 1 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. So let's get started. So today I thought that I could just share a little bit about some things that I've been going through. Of course, I'm going through menopause, and with that comes some challenges that I really wasn't prepared for. I didn't know a lot about it. It's not something other women really share and discuss. And my doctor really made me feel, this is just normal, tough it out, you're gonna get through this. And I just kind of felt a little bit brushed to the side. And so I just thought, you know what, I should just share a little bit about what's been going on, what I'm doing, and ask some of you, how are you coping with menopause? What have you been experiencing? What do you do to help you in all the different areas and struggles? But anyways, I'm going to start adding my ingredients with the bread first. So I did all my wet ingredients in here. And I do add 1 farm fresh egg to the wet. And instead of sugar, I add honey because, of course, it's better for you than white refined sugar. And any way that we can, and I have it on hand, so any way that I can step it up, I do. It's simple. I have it. Here's my honey. And then it's calling for 1.5 teaspoons of the salt. So I'm going to add that in. And I'm not always just perfectly with my measurements. I'm Italian. My husband often teases me. I never follow the same recipe twice. I always modify it. I do a little of this. I do a little of that. I don't know if you guys are like that, but anyways, I am. and I often get teased for it. And to this, I add my 1 cup of sourdough starter. So I'm adding this to the wet. I got my sourdough out of the fridge and reactivated it. And that usually takes a day or 2, and that works out great. So I'm just gonna put this in here with all the egg I put in there and all the other ingredients. And now I just add my 3 cups. I do heaping cups of the all-purpose flour. And like I said, you could easily, you know, if you were totally all in with finding better products, step it up a notch with the flour. So I do 3 heaping scoops of flour. And this time to try something a little bit new with my sourdough, I'm gonna wait till the cycle comes up. And it's add-in cycle. You can add whatever, you know, raisins, cinnamon, seasonings, whatever. So this time I thought, you know, I'm gonna try the everything bagel seasoning. I've sprinkled this on top of my sourdough and it was really good. But as you know, like, they fall off and it's quite messy. So I thought to myself, you know what, just put it in with the mix cycle. And so that's what I'm gonna try, because I don't mind trying something new. And so this is my yeast that's going in. So I'm just going to put this in my bread machine on the dough cycle and go ahead and start it up. That's usually a few hours. And after I have that done, well, let's sit down in my comfy chair and let's talk. So I just thought that this is such a under-discussed topic. Menopause, what all that means and entails for a woman. And I think that, you know, it's not something that my mother ever talked about. I never discussed it. I still haven't really discussed it. I've asked her, you know, what was it like for you? And she really didn't say too much about it. And I've even asked a few friends of mine, and it's very vague, any information. And I felt like it was such a relevant topic because there's so many things that go along with going through menopause that aren't just, you know, not having a cycle anymore. There's feelings and changes that happen to our bodies, and we really do, some women really struggle with it, and it's kind of a taboo subject. So my symptoms really weren't too extreme. I think I started going through a change at 48, and I remember talking to a friend, and she said, you know, now that you're saying some of these things, I think I'm experiencing the same thing. And she had no clue. And it slowly progressed where, you know, you just go through that certain phase at the beginning until you're losing your cycle, and then the fun begins. And I struggled more, not as much with the hot flashes, which were difficult, especially, you know, working, but that was tolerable. I mean, you expect some discomfort, but then there was the issue of not sleeping, and that's where I really struggled. So I did try a few natural products, and I did the Sleepy Time tea. I tried a supplement with different natural herbs in it, and that was pretty good. Rose hip, I've tried that. Wild yam supplement, and I took that for a while. melatonin before bed. And so those things are all good, natural help aids to get us through, different phases. But then it became where really I was not sleeping, and it felt like none of the natural remedies were really working anymore. And I was going through a lot in my personal life. We had some things going on, and of course, running my business. And at that time, my husband was running his own business, and we just had so many balls in the air. And I started to, with not sleeping, my hormones just went really out of whack. And I felt myself almost slipping into a depression. And I'm a very upbeat type of happy person. That is totally not in my character. And so that was really hard. And my husband started noticing. He said, you don't really smile very much anymore. And I just felt like I was going through a really difficult season, and I didn't know what to do about it. And like I said, when I talked to other ladies that maybe were a bit older than me, they just said they just went through it, and it seemed almost kind of a hopeless remedy. Like it just seemed like, well, you just have to, that's your lot in life and that's it. And so I just kind of limped along through it. And I started to have, with the sleeplessness, every night, it was like I almost didn't like going to bed because I was so exhausted and I just wanted some rest. And I'd get to bed and then I'd just be wide awake. And so I had this whole routine where I'd have to get back up out of bed, and I'd, make a tea or something and sit up until I felt, groggy, and then I'd go back to bed and hope that I could, get 4 hours. And so I just kind of went along like that for quite some time. And until I went to the doctors, I had an appointment for a physical. And my doctor was away on holidays, and that actually was very, very good for me because I had an older lady that was a nurse practitioner, and oh my goodness, she was so wonderful. And she just sat there and she said, "How are you doing? What's going on in your life right now? Tell me how you're feeling." And so she just gave me an opportunity to just tell her, I'm just really not doing well with this phase of menopause. And I told her how uncomfortable it has been. And I said, with the hormones and how I've almost been depressed, my emotional level was just, on a downward. And I said, it's even affecting, how my husband and I are relating with one another. And we've always had a very close relationship, an intimate relationship. And she listened and she said, "You know what? You're kind of young to be accepting that this is, your lot in life." And she began to talk to me about women's health and how some of the research and some of the information. And she said, and I had tried a vaginal, it's called Vagifem, and it's, it doesn't go systemic and da-da-da, and it really did nothing for me. It was just messy. And I said that to her. I said, no, my doctor suggested that. I gave it a try. It really didn't seem to do much for me. And so I just, gave up on it and thought, well, so she said, why don't we try something? And so she said, let's try this low dose estrogen and progesterone. And she explained all of the science behind it. And she said, I know for years there's been so much taboo about estrogen and women's health and the cancer scare. And so she walked me through all that. And I ended up leaving with so much information and almost with a little bit of excitement that, you know what, I'm going to try it. And she said to me, let's just try it for a few months, see how you feel, and get back to me. So that's what I did. And so I've been on this low level estrogen, progesterone. It's a gel. The progesterone is a tablet. The estrogen is just a gel cream, and you rub it on your leg every other, one leg this night, one leg the next night, and you do that for 25 days, and then you go off for 7. And I'm not gonna lie, it has made a huge difference in my life. And I was starting to sink into a depression. I was having anxiety and just totally not myself. And I've got to tell you, it's been a total turnaround. I've been sleeping so much better. I've been feeling so much better. Just that little bit of estrogen back in my body has just totally leveled me back out. And so I just thought I could share that with you, because we're almost have been conditioned to be so afraid of HRT. And that's what my nurse practitioner, talked to me about and educated me and said, do some research, before you go and get the prescription filled, educate yourself on HRT and what it can do for you and who is a candidate for it. And so I just thought that might benefit someone that feels like, you know what, this is it. This is the best for this season of my life. And so hopefully that maybe will encourage somebody that's listening today. And I have never been a person that's had depression. Even after I gave birth to my children, I really didn't have some of the things that other women experience with, postpartum. So my heart goes out for people that struggle with depression and even anxiety. There's so many people now that I have talked to that share about anxiety. And my heart is broken for people because so many people are going through these things. And I am so thankful that this season that I've gotten this help to make it through, because it's given me a whole new lease on my life, because I was really feeling hopeless. And my husband really didn't know how he could help and support me either. I've walked through some very difficult seasons. I'm still walking through difficult seasons, and not just menopause. So be that person for somebody else. If you have daughters, talk to them about it. Talk to them. Prepare them for the things that are ahead in their upcoming seasons of life. Share those things with them. And if your doctor isn't listening, maybe you have a nurse practitioner that's more open to meeting you where you're at and being honest and saying, is this it for me? Or maybe you need somebody that you can talk with. And so I encourage you today that I hope that you're that person for somebody, but also that I could be that person for you, that this conversation has maybe encouraged you today, whatever you're going through, whether it's menopause or mental health problems, anxiety, depression, I don't know. But I just hope that this has encouraged you, that you felt heard, or maybe you could leave some comments below and just say thank you, or leave a heart or a thumbs up or something to let me know that this talk today, me sharing some of my life struggles has touched you, has spoken into your heart and your life. So thank you so much for coming back today, baking bread, having a heart-to-heart talk about life, seasons, hard places that we're, traveling through. And I hope that you're going to have a great week, that you made it through another week, and we're getting ready to go through the next week. And know that I'm praying for you, that I'm thinking about you, and I hope that you will come back for next Sunday. So bye-bye for now, and take care.